Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, December the 31st. Happy New Year to all of you. And joining us for the last show of 2023, but obviously not the last time he'll be joining us. And that's our friend George Rodriguez from San Antonio. Hi, George. How are you?
Real good, real good, real good. Waiting for the new year.
Yeah, waiting for the New Year. Is there a celebration coming up in San Antonio? Like there's one in
There's
Dallas.
there is a large celebration downtown at Hemisphere, but
Okay.
unfortunately, there may be some pro-Hamas
Oh,
demonstrators as well there. So you know,
yeah, that's going to be a challenge for the police. Wherever you see a large crowd of people today, like New York, the police are really going to be challenged because these people want attention.
that's it.
And what better way of getting attention than breaking
Political
up or showing
pandering.
up? Yeah, I mean it's just terrible. But anyway, I hope everything goes smoothly. But you have to sometimes worry about that. Well, let me just quickly mention before we get to the news story. Today, December 31st, 1972, that would make it 51 years ago today. You and I remember this day. Roberto Clemente, the great Puerto Rican baseball player, was killed in an airplane crash. He was on a humanitarian mission. His plane took off from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then went over the water. And I don't know what happened. It went right down, and they never found his body. But we lost Roberto Clemente. What a great loss for baseball and really for society as a whole.
Yeah, I remember he was. My parents used to just love him. My dad, of course, was a big aficionado of baseball, and he took his death pretty bad. I mean, he was like a rock star to Latinos.
It was. He was really, in a way, not the first Latin superstar, but the first Latin superstar of the
Did a lot of,
television age.
yeah, right. Television, thanks to television, he was well known. He was very,
Uh,
very well known.
exactly. And so he was just a great player. And as it turns out, on his last at bat in 1972, his very last at bat, he got hit number 3,000. So
Yeah,
he made it to the 3,000 club on his last at bat in the last game of the year. So Roberto Clemente killed
but
51 years ago.
he paved
Amazing.
the way for a lot of great ones now.
Yeah, he did. He was. There were other great Latins at the time: Tony Oliva, Mike Cuellar. So there were others, Rod Carew. There were others, of course, the Alou brothers. I mean, Orlando Cepeda. So there were others at that time as well. But no question, Clemente. Uh, I'm not saying he was the best of them, but he was. It's got to be in the
The
top
best
two or
well known. He
three.
was the most well known.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Well, anyway, I got to bring this up because I hope I have the luck of the Cowboys in 2024. That game last night, they won, and combined with the Philadelphia loss today, this is and you go from like you're out of the season with 30 seconds to go to now you can win the division next week. What an amazing turnaround, George.
It's amazing. I mean, if they win, if they beat the Washington Commanders, and I still want to call them the Washington Redskins,
Well, let's call them the Redskins
the
here.
Redskins, because
Yeah,
that's what they were, and that's what they
that's what.
continue to be.
Yeah, that was a
If
silly
they beat
change.
the Redskins next week, they are going to be the number two seed in the national conference,
Right.
and that's amazing. I mean, that is really really amazing because it wasn't too long ago, about 3 weeks ago, that they were all but counted out as just another wild card.
Exactly. And even last night, I mean, I was watching the game with 20 seconds to go. I said, my gosh, what a terrible break for the Cowboys to lose a game like this. And then it becomes a terrible break for the Lions. Now, the Lions are in, and the Cowboys are in.
They
So
have won.
maybe they're going to run into each other. And
They have won their conference completely.
yes,
It's just a question of them beating whoever the wild card is going to be. You know.
right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So, anyway, so it comes down to another Dallas Washington game next week. There have been a few of those over the years.
There've been a lot of them. I mean, well, I was in DC in the 1980s through the 90s. We used to see a lot of great Cowboy Redskin games.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's still a great rivalry, but there were some great days back then, no question. about it. Well, George, let's talk a little bit today about the Biden delegation that went down to see President Lopez Obrador of Mexico about this crisis on the border. And I have a post at the American Thinker basically saying that they gave Biden the middle finger. I mean, they didn't show, frankly, show a lot of respect for Biden and what happened. As it turns out, you can fill in some of the information, but as it turns out, they went down and basically Lopez Obrador said, yeah, we have a problem and what we need is more amnesty. I mean, basically, we have a problem and we need more amnesty and we need for you to bail out Cuba and we need for you to bail out Venezuela. And that's my plan, guys. What do you think? That's kind of what happened. It's pretty bad, really, when you think about it, George.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Again, it is these globalist people, these people who believe that America's issues are globalist, and therefore that somehow everybody else has to have a say in what our issues or how to resolve our issues. That is so ridiculous. That is that constant view of a person is part of a greater community, and the whole community has to help them overcome their problem. This is an American problem. This border is an American problem. This illegal immigration is an American problem. We could solve it very quickly, and I guarantee that that Lopez Obrador would change his tune if Trump was telling him, we're going to shut the border down and we're going to raise tariffs and we're going to stop trading with you. I bet you he'd change his tune in a minute if he was dealing with that.
And that is, it's sort of like that is what happened 4 years ago. I mean, President
Exactly
Trump
what happened.
sat down with him and said, look, I need your help. And he hinted that if he didn't get help, that he was the first thing he was going to do.
You do it or you don't. Either you do it, we do it together, or you do, or we do it on our own. And
right. And what
the problem again, Silvio, has always been that when the United States sneezes, Mexico gets the cold. That's the cold reality of this whole situation. But now we are pretending that somehow we are tied in many ways to the rest of the world, including to Mexico. And unless we get Mexico's buy-in on a situation, everything is not going to work out. Well, I got news for you. López Obrador is not our friend. Hugo Chavez was not our friend. The current president of Venezuela, the dictator of Venezuela, is not our friend, and nor is any of the community or the communist leadership in Cuba our friend.
Right.
So
Exactly.
why should we depend on them to solve a border problem?
Right. And to me, the problem now, I got to give not credit, but I have to say this. Lopez Obrador, a couple of years ago, as you said, did cut a deal with Trump, and that deal kept people in Mexico. And the Remain in Mexico policy had one great consequence, and that is that people stayed in Mexico, or they never came, because nobody's going to pay you.
They didn't want to stay in Mexico because Mexico didn't want them.
Right.
The Mexicans didn't want them.
Exactly.
So therefore, they didn't want to sit there and wait, so they didn't come.
Exactly. And why would you pay? I mean, just as a practical matter, if I'm in Venezuela or I'm somewhere else in the world and somebody says, pay me to take me to Mexico, you're going to say, wait a minute, why am I going to pay you to take me to Mexico?
Exactly.
Unless I can get into the United States, this is not a good investment. And that was the consequence of Remain in Mexico, that people were discouraged to come because you weren't going to pay somebody to, as you said, wait 3 or 4 years in Mexico. But that arrangement was made between López Obrador and Trump, and you hear all kinds of things. But what I've heard is that there was the possibility of a tax on the remesas, which is now $50 billion a year. That's a lot of money. And then, of course, there was also some talk about, as you say, sanctions, economic sanctions. And so somehow, when they got together, when Trump was president, Trump was doing the talking and López Obrador was doing the listening. Now it seems like Lopez Obrador is talking and Joe Biden is on vacation. I mean, that's kind of where we are. I'm not saying the president doesn't deserve a vacation. That's not my point. All presidents go on vacation this
You're
time
being
of the
too
year.
nice on that point. You're being too nice. I mean, that's
Yes, and but this guy's been on vacation quite a bit. But I think that the other thing, George, too, that bothers me is the idea that somehow we're going to fix this problem by amnesty. How is
oh,
that going to? That is simply going to encourage the problem. More
exactly.
people are going to come
They're going to
if
try
we.
to get here before the amnesty happens, and
Right.
so and right now we're not doing anything to stop them. We are doing nothing. Uh, the situation. I interviewed some folks for my show yesterday, and as we speak, there are thousands waiting to cross the border at midnight tonight, because there are more regulations that are going to be relaxed, and they're just going to. I mean, we are going to be overwhelmed come midnight. It's outrageous. I went over to the processing center here in San Antonio, the migrant center here in San Antonio. It is packed to the gills. It is packed to the gills. People walking around outside, people sleeping outside, children sitting around outside. The vast majority, again, are young men that are wandering around. Uh, it is not a good social situation for the United States. It is
Right.
not.
Now, the other thing too, George, that I was going to mention is they talk about amnesty, but who would qualify for that under what conditions? Now, you were in the Reagan administration when they did the amnesty back in '86, but that of course was a congressional action. I
It
mean,
was.
Congress was involved. Congress passed that. I think it was called the Simpson-Rodino, wasn't it?
Yeah. Simpson Mazzoli.
Simpson-Rodino,
Simpson Mazzoli.
Mazzilli. Simpson being the senator from Wyoming, right?
And
And
Mazzoli being the Democrat congressman.
from New York,
New
from
Jersey.
Wyoming,
From New
New
Jersey.
Jersey, yeah. And the two of them were able to work it out. So at least they had a bipartisan tone to it. And that particular amnesty applied to people who at the time were here, who had been here a long time.
They had to show that they had been here. They had to prove that they had been here
Exactly.
for longer than 5 years. And they had to show proficiency of English, etc. There were several. There was about 8 requirements that were needed, and of course, initially there was some screaming and yelling, but there were. What was really surprising at that point, at that time, was that we expected well over 8 million people to apply, and only 2 million applied for it. About 2.3 million people applied for it, and that was amazing to us because it showed that people were truly just coming to work and going home. And but that is not the case that we've got now. The case that we've got now is that people are coming, and they're coming to stay.
Right. Well, and the other thing too, and what I find most shocking about what's happening right now on the border is that people are showing up and they get a ticket to see a judge. Now, I thought Henry Cuellar, the congressman from South Texas, was on Fox News this morning on the Fox Sunday News program, Fox Sunday, I think it's called, and he said something that did not surprise me, but it was the first time that I had ever heard it. He says that 83% or 87%, one I don't remember, 83 or 87, don't even pass the asylum test.
They don't. They
That
don't.
when they go in front of the judge, they don't qualify, which means that we are letting the point that Cuellar was making. It's a heck of a good point. He says we're letting in 100 people to keep 13 because 87 we're going to reject. So he says,
And
why not?
reject them again? If we reject them, think they're going to leave?
Well,
you
that's
think
the issue.
so?
That's the problem.
You think these people, particularly if they're going to go quietly, the fact of the matter is that we have seen constantly, and this is something that the nonprofits that work with these undocumented folks that they deny, but it's not, but it's the fact. The fact is that the vast majority of these people uh, once they are denied, will never leave. Will disappear. Once they get a denial letter, they will disappear, and you will not be able to find them.
Right.
On top of that, we have seen in the past, we have seen violent resistance to being picked up by ICE, by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, by being picked up by them and being deported. We most recently during the Trump administration, we had some Haitians riot on an airplane that was taking them back to Haiti.
Right.
This
No, it's
situation is really, really dangerous for the United
Right.
States.
No, it's ridiculous. And I thought, the point that Cuellar made this morning was so good. Henry Cuellar, the Democrat, really from the border, he says that what we need to do is process them before they come in.
Exactly.
So, and that was where the remain in Mexico
Before they-
policy made sense.
Before they come in. That's right.
Because then you look at a person and before he steps into the United States, you decide whether or not he qualifies.
Yeah, whether or not
If he qualifies, then you let him in and go through the process.
right.
But if he doesn't qualify, and I thought these figures from Henry Cuellar were stunning, either 83 or 87% never qualify.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people who are coming in, they don't qualify, and then when they don't qualify, they get a letter from some judge that says you didn't qualify and you need to leave the country, and good luck with that.
Good luck with that.
As you have
many people that I have interviewed at the migrant center here in San Antonio, none of them would qualify because all of them are coming in for economic reasons. They are
Right.
not. They are of a religious or party group that is under that is being targeted. They personally are not involved in any way as resistance to a dictator or anything else. They're just coming here to work, and they tell you that.
Right, and this is of course the difference with the Cuban refugees. We were political refugees
Exactly.
when we came.
Communism.
Yeah, that's right. We were fleeing communism.
I guess we forget communism now.
No, that's right. Yeah, we were fleeing communism, and it was in the middle of the Cold War. So we were the prototypical political refugee,
Correct.
seeking asylum. But even then, even for the Cubans, it was an orderly process.
Correct.
I mean, that's the thing that people forget, that yes, over 1 million Cubans.
Vast majority of Cubans that came at that time were family members.
That's right.
Members of families.
And if you look at the number of Cubans who left, roughly 1 million who left over a 10 to 15 year span, we left, but there was a process for us to come in. Now, there was the exception, Mariel, in April of 1980, when like 100,000 people came in, like in boats and all that kind of thing. But that was a small minority of the group. On the whole, it was more like my family, where my father and mother and the three of us came. But there was a process. We had to go through a process. But the good news about the process was that once we were in and went through the process, then my dad could work the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And that's the
the other thing, Silvio, is the quality and caliber of people that were coming across. Because of the communist takeover, the vast majority of Cubans that came were the well-educated, were people that had property, were people that had
the middle class. It was the Cuban middle class. That's what it was.
That is different than what we are seeing now. We are not seeing the middle class from Venezuela, the middle class from Nicaragua, the middle class from El Salvador, the middle class from Bangladesh coming across.
Or from Cuba, for that matter, right now. Yeah.
These third world dictators are sending us the poorest of the poor because they don't want them.
Right. And that's a very important point that gets lost, because The Economist here recently, I'm trying to find the article, but I just read it real fast one day on the internet, and I wish I had saved the link because I want to find it. The Economist was basically saying that somebody's weaponizing illegal immigration.
Yes, yes.
What they're doing is they're using illegal immigration to get rid of people because they don't want these people. They don't want them. And at the same time, once they come over here, then they send money back. And Mexico is the best example of that. Mexico is getting over $50 billion. That's $4 billion a month that they are getting in what they call remesas or remittances. And these remesas are keeping lots and lots of Mexicans eating. They're paying a lot of rent. I mean, it's like a safety net for
It's foreign.
Mexico.
It's foreign aid. That's what it is. Illegal foreign aid.
Well, yeah, that's what it's become. And with Mexico, it's 50 billion. With other countries, it's not as much, but the percentage of the as a
And
percentage of the
a
economy,
lot
it's
of
even
these
more.
dictators are looking for that remesa.
Yeah,
Come
remesas.
back. The
Yeah,
remesa back into the
remesas in Spanish, remittances in English. But anyway, and it seems to me that here the I was listening to Tony Gonzalez today. He was with Henry Cuellar, and he was basically saying you can forget amnesty because that's not going to happen in Congress. I'm not even sure they have all the Democrats on board for that. I'm talking in the Senate, not in the House. Because if you're the Democrat from Montana seeking reelection or the Democrat from Ohio seeking reelection, you're already in a very tough fight to get reelected. Why would you want to support
race,
amnesty?
something like that.
Yeah, so that's. But anyway, I just think the Biden administration, the Dallas Morning News had a very interesting editorial saying Biden has to get engaged.
And
He has to pick up the
I am
phone.
not sure he's
And
going to. I'm not sure he can.
well, I'm not either, but he has to get engaged. He has to pick up the phone and deal directly with Lopez Obrador and say, "This is what we need." Very similar to what Trump did, but this is what we need. And my friend, I need you to say yes because otherwise I got to consider options. And that's how you talk to him. Anyway, one more story before we run out of time. This is going to be a big one, I think, over the next few weeks. The Department of Justice is going after Texas because of
Now
the
why?
new law.
Now why?
Yeah, because of the new law that the governor just signed, where we can arrest people crossing the border. George, technically, the federal government runs the border. The federal government has a responsibility, technically. But I would love to see this go to the Supreme Court.
And I think
I hope so. I hope so. I hope it goes to the Supreme Court. And I hope the Supreme Court basically gives us an opinion because I think Texas and other states are entitled to know what happens when you are spending the kind of money we have to spend on the border. The city of Eagle Pass is spending something like $21,000, I think, a day or a week. And that's a lot of money for a little
town. It is a small town.
That is a very small town. What is the population of Eagle Pass? 10,000 maybe?
Yeah, 13.
13,000. So you're talking about a lot of money that a small town is paying basically to support these activities. And, that is simply unfair. So I think the Democrats the old expression, be careful what you wish for, because if this goes to the Supreme Court, I think this Supreme Court may very well said, in the absence of federal leadership, Texas can do this. I think that's what will happen, George.
That's it. And I think that is the big question and issue that is going to be raised in this. What are the states supposed to do if they are trying to keep their citizens safe and protect their borders, protect their economy, if the federal government fails to do it? And that's if I was Biden, I'd be scared to death that question would be raised to the Supreme Court. But these liberals, these leftists, these radical leftists that are in the Democratic Party now, they don't care. They want the Constitution changed. They want it ripped. And nothing would make them better than for the Supreme Court to give them another reason why they can scream and yell that the Supreme Court is out of touch,
right,
with the new world.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure
this situation. I mean, I really do believe that that's the bottom line. Right. Is the question of if the federal government doesn't do it, let the state government do it.
Right. No, I think it's a pretty obvious topic to me. I mean, I see it. Hey, the federal government has chosen not to do anything, and what do you expect Texas to do? And I think that it's going to be a bad issue for the Biden administration, George, because if you look at all this polling data, the border is his worst topic.
Yeah,
that's where he's 40 points down.
Worst.
Yeah. I mean, that's where he is. He's about 40% overall. But when you look at the border, he's in the 20s.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, who are the 20s The 20
Well,
something.
and, what it really makes me wonder is who the heck is taking care of his polls. I mean, there are people in both the party as well as at the White House that should be measuring his popularity, measuring his issues, and I don't understand why they're not trying to address this in some form or fashion, other than this band-aid of sending a delegation down to Mexico
Right,
and getting
exactly.
nothing.
And getting nothing. That's exactly right. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us today. What are you planning for the first of the year? Anything?
Well, tonight food, and then tomorrow more food and football.
Well, that's
Texas
about what
and
everybody
Washington.
does. Yeah, well, that's what
Texas,
everybody
Washington,
does. So
Michigan, Michigan
yeah,
and Alabama.
that should be a good game, by the way. That should be a very good game. Well, happy New Year, and we'll see you in 24.
You got it, buddy.
All
Anytime.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our good friend George Rodriguez talking about the situation on the border, in particular this delegation that they sent to Mexico. By the way, I just want to repeat that I have a post this morning over at the American Thinker about this topic. So if you get a chance, check it out. But I think sending a delegation to Mexico and have that delegation talk to the president of Mexico about amnesty. I mean, I think Secretary Blinken should have said, you know what, this is a joke. I'm going back to Washington and I'm going to recommend some very tough measures against Mexico. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, they should be talking about solving the problem, not making it worse. Amnesty is not the issue here. Immigration reform is not the issue. The issue is that Mexico is allowing thousands of people to walk through Mexico to the border. And that's what the problem is. Mexico needs to do more to stop it, because that's the country they're going through, Mexico. They need to do more to stop it. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. As I said, this is our last video for 2023. So thank you so much for watching us today, listening to us today on the podcast, and thank you for all your clicks and all your comments in 2023. And we hope that 2024 will bring more comments and more clicks and more people watching and listening to the podcast. Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you next year, which is about what, 6 hours away, 7 hours away, 2024, 7 hours away. Wow. All right, thank you. Have a wonderful day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.